On June 25, 2026, the strategic calculus of the Russia-Ukraine war underwent a fundamental paradigm shift. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky signed an unprecedented operational directive initiating what military intelligence describes as the largest, most highly coordinated 40-day deep strike campaign in modern warfare. The objective is explicit: to bypass the stagnant, heavily fortified trench lines of the Donbass and strike directly at the economic and political gravity centers of the Russian Federation. This is not a defensive maneuver. It is a calculated strategic siege scheduled to culminate on August 4th, designed to induce structural paralysis within the Kremlin and force Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table. Unlike previous sporadic drone incursions, this campaign leverages an integrated arsenal of indigenous long-range strike capabilities. Among these are the newly deployed Peklo rocket drones, the Palyannitsia missile drones, and the devastating FP-5 Flamingo cruise missiles, augmented by Western-supplied assets like Storm Shadow and ATACMS. Following a high-level command meeting between Zelensky and SBU Director Yevgeny Komarov, the operational order was clear: move the war's center of gravity directly into the Russian heartland. The geographical footprint of this campaign is staggering, encompassing a high-intensity strike corridor stretching from Moscow and St. Petersburg in the north, extending eastward to the industrial hubs of the Ural region, and anchoring south across Krasnodar, Volgograd, and the occupied Crimean Peninsula. To understand the scale of this operation, we must analyze the opening salvos. In the first 72 hours of the campaign, Ukraine executed simultaneous, highly coordinated deep strikes across 12 distinct Russian regions. The primary focus of this asymmetric onslaught was the Moscow Oblast. According to data acknowledged by the Russian Ministry of Defense, Moscow faced a saturation attack involving over 660 Ukrainian kamikaze drones. From a military standpoint, this represents a textbook application of anti-access/area denial A2/AD penetration. By launching hundreds of low-radar cross-section drones simultaneously from multiple vectors, Ukraine effectively overwhelmed Russia's layered air defense network, exhausting the interceptor stockpiles of Panzer S-1 and S-400 systems. The tactical execution was precise. While dummy drones absorbed the attention of Russian radar operators, advanced low-observable strike drones penetrated the capital's inner defense ring. Visual confirmation soon emerged from the Kapotnya district. The Moscow oil refinery, a critical energy node supplying the capital's logistics and transportation networks, was struck, triggering catastrophic thermal failures. Further south, the Krasnodar Krai was subjected to a parallel assault. The Peshanokopskaya oil depot, a primary logistics artery fueling the Russian Black Sea Fleet and mechanized units on the southern front, was completely compromised by precision drone impacts, creating a logistical void in the Russian southern supply chain. The operational design of the 40-day siege places a heavy emphasis on the total isolation of occupied Crimea. For years, the peninsula has functioned as an unsinkable aircraft carrier and primary logistical springboard for Russian operations in southern Ukraine. During the initial phase of this campaign, coordinated actions by the Ukrainian military and SBU Alpha specialized units initiated a systematic interdiction campaign. The primary targets were maritime logistics assets. Two critical Russian naval auxiliary vessels, the Volga and the Vyatka, which serve essential roles in military undersea cable laying and fleet resupply, sustained catastrophic damage while moored. By blinding regional early warning radar arrays and neutralizing substations, Ukraine plunged significant portions of Sevastopol and Kerch into a total blackout. The operational impact was immediate. Russian occupation authorities were forced to declare a regional state of emergency, halting commercial fuel sales, suspending tourism, and enforcing strict curfews. From a military perspective, this moves Crimea from a state of secure occupation into a state of active operational siege. The psychological toll on the administrative infrastructure is immense, shifting the local population's perception from wartime stability to immediate vulnerability. What allows Ukraine to sustain this level of operational intensity? The answer lies in rapid domestic defense engineering and weapon diversification. The centerpiece of this new doctrine is the FP5 Flamingo cruise missile. Furthermore, Ukraine's deployment strategy utilizes complex swarm intelligence. Decoy drones, cheaply constructed wooden or composite aircraft equipped with radar reflectors, are launched ahead of the main strike package. These decoys mimic the radar signatures of larger cruise missiles, forcing Russian S-400 batteries to activate their engagement radars, reveal their positions, and expend multi-million-dollar interceptors. Once the air defense grid is saturated or reloading, the true strike elements, including the Flamingo and Palianitsia, move in to neutralize the primary targets. This asymmetric economic model, using a $1,000 decoy to deplete a $1 million missile, is creating severe structural strain on Russia's defense architecture. Military operations are rarely divorced from psychological and historical context, and the temporal framework of this 40-day campaign is highly symbolic. The timeline dictates that the operation peaks around August 4th, 2026. This date carries profound historical resonance within the context of Russian state stability. President Zelensky recently cited classified internal Russian assessments obtained by the SBU. According to these documents, public anxiety metrics within the Russian Federation have breached the 50% threshold, surpassing the public alarm recorded during the Ukrainian offensive into the Kursk Oblast in 2025. Furthermore, the data claims that 66% of surveyed Russian citizens characterize their personal financial stability as degraded, with over 80% anticipating a severe macroeconomic crisis. As military analysts, we must treat unilateral intelligence releases with a high degree of skepticism. Public morale metrics published by a combatant state are inherently leveraged for information operations. However, when we cross-reference these claims with independent, internationally verified economic indicators, a clear pattern of structural friction emerges. In the first half of 2026, the Russian Federation's GDP experienced a measurable contraction. More critically, state revenues derived from oil and gas exports, the primary fiscal engine of the Kremlin's war machine, declined by nearly 50% during the opening months of the year, marking a 5-year fiscal low. Concurrently, Russia's National Wealth Fund, traditionally utilized as the Kremlin's emergency financial cushion, is liquidating at an accelerated pace to cover widening budget deficits. With domestic inflation persisting in the double digits and the Russian central bank maintaining interest rates at 16.5%, the domestic economy is operating under extreme stress conditions. This economic attrition is reinforced by hard military data. The Russian Ministry of Defense stated it intercepted 8,849 Ukrainian drones in May of 2026 alone, a massive escalation compared to the 3,676 interceptions reported in January. This exponential increase proves that the drone threat to Russian domestic infrastructure is expanding at a rate that outpaces domestic air defense replacement capacity. The critical question remains: can a 40-day deep strike campaign realistically force a systemic Kremlin capitulation? There are compelling counterarguments. Historically, the Russian state has demonstrated an extraordinary capacity to absorb economic punishment and military casualties. Despite 4 years of comprehensive Western sanctions, the Russian domestic economy has re-engineered its supply lines, heavily leveraging sanction evasion networks through third-party nations. Furthermore, external geopolitical variables can rapidly alter Russia's fiscal outlook. Any escalation of kinetic conflict in the Middle East that drives global Brent crude prices upward immediately provides Moscow with a financial lifeline offsetting domestic refining losses. Additionally, the risk of a massive Russian retaliatory response remains high. The recent relative decrease in Russian strategic missile strikes against Ukrainian urban centers is widely interpreted by intelligence analysts not as a sign of exhaustion, but as a deliberate operational pause to stockpile precision-guided munitions for a coordinated counter-infrastructure campaign. Supported by tech supply chains from China and ammunition transfers from North Korea, Moscow retains significant structural endurance. Ultimately, Ukraine's 40-day siege should not be viewed as a silver bullet, but as an intensified phase of a long-term war of asymmetric attrition. The success of this strategy does not rely on a sudden dramatic collapse within the Kremlin by August 4th. Rather, it depends on 3 interdependent operational pillars: the sustained continuity of Western intelligence and material support, the rate of compounding industrial damage inside Russia, and Ukraine's logistical capability to maintain this high-intensity strike tempo without depleting its own defensive reserves. As the sirens continue to wail across Moscow and Crimea, the strategic equation is being tested to its absolute limit. What are your thoughts on this asymmetric air campaign? Can Ukraine truly force a paradigm shift in the Kremlin's strategy, or will Russia's strategic depth absorb the blow? Let us know your analysis in the comments below. Thank you for watching this report.